Hi all. As I've gone down the rabbit hole with various solutions to hi-hat and cymbal bleed in the snare mic, I figured I'd put together a quick video comparing the different tools that I've tried. I've grouped these into two categories. First are essentially resonance suppression plugins, which aim to reduce the hi-hat and cymbal bleed but don't actually gate the snare. This includes Smooth Operator Pro by Baby Audio, Soothe 2 by Oak Sound, and Saturn 2 by Fab Filter, which is itself a saturation plugin that's being repurposed here. The other group consists of gate and debleed tools, which includes the stock Logic Noise Gate, Oxford Drum Gate, Black Cell Audio Silencer, THR debleed, and Wave Machine Labs Restem. Before we get started, a couple disclaimers. First, this is by no means the entire list of tools and techniques out there for this issue, but rather just some that I've used. Feel free to add in any other solutions that you've had luck with in the comments. Second, I made adjustments to the plugins that sounded best to me. You may have made different choices if you were in the driver's seat, and that's totally cool. Just know that this is a quick example from each plugin rather than an exhaustive tutorial. I'll be starting with the raw audio, which is a single mic snare track using an SM57 into an API preamp. Nothing fancy. I'll be flipping back and forth from the raw audio to each plugin sample and back, and then I'll save my opinions for the end. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go. So here's my thoughts on everything. Starting with Smooth Operator Pro, I didn't find this to be a good solution to this particular problem. It kind of just dulls the high end without carving out the snare in any way. It's an excellent plugin for some things, but just not so much for this, and it was my least favorite of the bunch. Soothe 2 performed a little better than Smooth Operator, but not by much. I started with the Remove Hi-Hat preset, and I cranked it up even more, but it still wasn't great in my opinion. Again, this is a legendary plugin for many things, but again, not for this particular thing. Saturn's interesting in this case as it's primarily a saturation plugin, but the ability to split out the frequency bands helps with hi-hat bleed by suppressing above the frequency band marker. In this case, I used around 800 hertz to 1 kilohertz. I find that Saturn does a decent job at maintaining more of the snare's original tone compared to Smooth Operator and Soothe. Saturn also keeps in the ghost notes better, which is great. However, it overall dulls the snare a little too much for my liking. I do like it a lot when it's used in a two mic setup with one of the drum gate options blended into it. I included the stock Logic noise gate as a way to give you some sort of standard perspective. It does get you pretty close, but it takes a ton of tweaking and ultimately succumbs to false triggers too often to make it sound natural. Although it is due to these shortcomings why the more specialized drum gate plugins exist in the first place. The remaining plugins all have different strengths and they're all excellent options in my opinion. Oxford Drumgate sounds excellent in general. It keeps the transient more intact and has more options to shape the overall sound, including the leveler section, which is a great bonus. I do find it a little finicky on the threshold detection and overall tougher to maintain the original high end without sacrificing cymbal bleed. I've used Silencer by Black Salt Audio quite a bit over the last couple of years and really enjoyed it. It's the quickest and easiest to dial in and get a good sound right away. I also like that it keeps more of the high end intact while suppressing the hi-hat bleed really well. It gives the driest sound, which can sometimes be just what's needed. However, I find that it gates a little too much for a more natural drum sound. It does have a ghost note option on the bottom left to include the ghost notes that it cuts out, but that ends up being a little too much and it lets in too much hi-hat. I have trouble finding a middle ground between the too dry and the too much hi-hat bleed. I also find that it sometimes seems like it smears the transients, but that's just a subjective thing. D-Bleed by THR is another excellent option. It's very similar to Silencer, including a lot of the same controls. But I find that it allows for more sustain and more high end without having to sacrifice that hi-hat bleed. This plugin is the newest one to me, so I haven't had a chance to really work it hard enough to notice any major complaints at this point. However, I am very impressed with it so far. And last on the list is Restem by Wave Machine Labs. It's not a gate at all, but rather a stem splitter specifically for drums. You can load in a recording of an entire drum kit and it will split out the various elements. In this use case, it does an amazing job separating out the parts of the kit and it allows you to dial elements in or out more naturally. It does the best job of keeping ghost notes and high end intact while almost fully eliminating cymbal bleed. It also has some excellent additional tools, including a traditional gate, transient shaper, and a sampler through Drumagog. It's not a cheap plugin, but I've really enjoyed using it. The one major downside is that you have to run the sound clip into the plugin in real time before being able to process anything. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the comparison. Thanks for letting me geek out on this. Cheers.